might sound redundant, but I'm sure you've heard people say that I did not know I was black till I came to America. It's a thing. Joe Biden, who left, and Trump, who's coming president, as well as my Cameroonian president and the one who's contesting against him and others, are in that same age bracket. But there's a difference.
Is democracy really for Africans?
Let me say this, it's not for Africa.
Africans on Africa, let's go.
I like it. Africans on Africa. If there's one thing I am passionate about, it's about being African. I don't want to change that. I am not going to change that. I love it. So just seeing your podcast called Africans on Africa, it just gives me a direction, a sense of where we're heading with this conversation. So Ivan, thank you so much for having me here today.
Amazing. And thank you for honoring the invite. It's so ironic for you, a person who hosts Let's Talk to Me Africa, to say, let's talk. But let's talk about this passion that we have of being African. And I think the point where I want to start from is a bit of where you are currently in your life and transitioning possibly. And you can tell us a bit more about transitioning from being in Cameroon and going to the United States. I think with a glimpse of the state of blackness in the United States, and also with the state of Africanness within the United States, how have you experienced that, and how has your transition to the United States been, and specifically thinking of your Africanness?
This might sound redundant, but I'm sure you've heard people say that I did not know I was black till I came to America. It's a thing. It is actually a thing, because Africans, we know about ethnic groups. You're from this ethnic group, from that ethnic group. We don't speak the same language. You know, when we walk in the streets of Africa as Africans, you cannot tell where people come from unless they tell you their last name, which last name is what gives us away on the continent. When you come to America, you don't even have to open your mouth. They just see you as black. Okay? When I don't talk, you see me as black. Until I talk, you go, oh, she's African black, and she is, the other person is African American black. So it was a transition. You have to make that transition, Ivan, when you come to America as an African or as a black melanated person. You have to. Now, you do make that change and say, okay, I know I'm black. Now I'm black. Not just physically, but also written. Because there are forms where you have to check. I didn't get that in Cameroon. I never checked a box that said I was in Cameroon. We have English and French speaking. And from the English part, I never got a box that said, are you Anglophone or Francophone? No, I never got it. A box that said, no. But here you have to check that box, which says you're black, and it's put in one box. We and the African Americans are in one box, black or African American. So I checked that box. Now I'm in that box of being a black person until I meet the person who's asking me to check that box. Maybe an interviewer who says, okay, so you check the box. Maybe before I show up, they've seen my checkbox is black. And then when I come in and then I speak, they say, oh, she's African. Because today, even names will not tell you people are Africans or not. So I could check the box and have an African looking or sounding name. That doesn't mean I'm African until I speak. And then it tells them I'm African. So you have to accept that transition. You have to welcome it. And when you welcome it, you have to deal with it. What I mean by deal with it is that African Americans are so different from Africans. Okay? So now you start asking yourself, okay, I checked the box, I'm black. I have transitioned from being an African or a Cameroonian to being a black person in America. All right? Now, I need to distinguish myself from the original Black Americans, those whose ancestors, descendants of slavery, right? That's the difference. Again, you have to also check that box. Yes, I'm black, I'm African, but I'm not African American. And today, there's a whole discussion going on, Ivan, about who is African American. Who should we call African American?
Yeah.
They're saying that I am African American. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
So that's one thing that I asked at the beginning that you never really got to. So what do you identify as? Do you identify as African? Do you identify as black? Because there is a layered nature of your existence in America.
Is, yes,
but also I'm interested in your own identity and how you identify. How do you identify?
Identify as black. I don't identify as African American because before I came to America in the 80s, Jesse Jackson had, I hear that people say he's the one that decided that they should be called African Americans. Okay, before I came here, there are people who have been called African Americans, right? From being called slaves, Negroes, colored, Black Americans to African American. That is their story. Okay,
Yeah,
and now today
yeah.
they're saying that because I came from Africa, I should be called African American. No, until you change your own. You are African American. It was a legal change that was made. Today there's a debate of, okay, because I came from Africa, I am now American, I should be African American. And I say no, I am Black. All right. And I'd rather say, and I want to identify as Cameroonian American or African who has, moved to America. But the term African American doesn't suit me. I'm not going to claim it. It's some
Yeah,
people
yeah.
who have toiled in this country to make it to the point where I can come here and live my life so easily that own that title. And some of them are denying me. They go, oh, we've heard of so much from Africa that don't call us that. But I'm sorry, I identify as a Black person. And African,
Yeah.
if I could choose my own, I would say African, precisely African. But I would not say I'm African American. Oh, no.
Yeah, I think there's a work that that race does in terms of identifying people, and also it is fascinating for me to hear you saying that you identify yourself as Black, and as much as I respect that, because for me I identify myself as African first, which is a whole different conversation where skin color might have different connotations in the context where you're coming from, but also in the context where I'm coming from, but also where I exist, because I still exist in Africa, where the African identity is still very polarized, but also it's very controversial in a sense. But where I wanted to get at is this aspect of the appropriation of the black identity and Blackness, and something that you spoke about when you said there's a whole conversation that is happening currently where African Americans are either defining themselves as African Americans or Black. In my previous episode, I was speaking about how identities are important because it's a narrative that you tell about yourself, but also a narrative that people tell about you, right? But in telling a narrative about yourself and saying, for example, I'm African American, and the narrative that has been going on that you spoke about, so do you perceive that as appropriating the Africanness, or do you view that as they have a right to call themselves African? Because there's a whole debate of culture, there's a whole debate of calling yourself, there's a whole Zulu debate that went on in New Orleans and against South Africans and all of that. So in being in that space, how do you perceive people who are Black in America and yourself? Do you perceive yourself as different, or do you view yourself as someone who fits in that context?
Let me rephrase something I said earlier. You said that I identify myself as Black. I do legally in America, but contextually, socially, I am African before anything else. And when it comes to the legality of America, if I have to check a box, I check the black box. There's no box that says African when you're checking boxes in America. If they had that one, I would check African. Okay, so I had to make that clear. Now,
makes sense.
Back now to your question, that context of putting people in a box of, are they African American? How do we identify ourselves, and how do I think I fit? It is difficult, because if I had to draw my own box, I would make a little square and say African, but I don't have that. Now I've been asked to put myself here and there. I actually have to choose something, so end of the day, I might say I'm African American because that's what I see they tell me. But if that did not exist, I would definitely check a box that says African, because that is who I am. It doesn't matter where I live, I am going to be an African.
Yeah. And
Right?
I think
I don't think I can really change it.
It goes to show how controversial just the African identity and the Black identity is, and how the conflictual history also fits into how that fits in, right? But what I wanted to get at is this aspect of migration, right, which we have been talking to, but we haven't really spoken about. You know, you migrated to the US, and then I know there is another episode that you spoke about culture shock in the US, but also your identity also is, you're trying to fit into that context, you know. And from what we see, at least, blackness is hard to navigate in the United States. Migrating to the States as a black person is very hard, controversial to say the least, right? But now I wanted to get at this aspect that has been happening within the African continent, specifically starting in Ghana in 2019, where we had the year of the return,
the Great Return.
For the Great Return. Just for context, the year of the Great Return is for everybody who identified themselves as African American, reconnecting with their roots. But also there is a tourism aspect that was tied to that, where it boosted the tourism in Ghana and also in other African countries, because it was called the year of Great Return. But COVID also brought a lot of that in South Africa, in Kenya, and other African countries, specifically for African Americans coming to Africa and settling within the African continent. And for me, it's a bit of a controversial thing, because I think it brings to question this aspect of migration, where doors are not really open for Africans to go to other spaces. But when other people come to African spaces, you know, it's like this whole thing that they are welcome. But also for them, it's a great privilege, because they come here with monies that they can't afford to buy a house in the States. They come here, they settle, and then, you know, and which has been a controversial thing in Ghana, because some people are saying they are taking part, they're taking space in terms of the economy. So how do you see the Great Return, not only confining it to Ghana, but the effect that it has had in Cameroon and other countries?
I think it's more in Ghana. I haven't really heard about the Great Return in Cameroon, but I have met a couple of African Americans who've been to Cameroon, but they haven't settled. They just visited and they came back. But the controversy around the Great Return, like you say, Africans are very welcoming. It doesn't matter who you are or what you look like. We're always, you know, open-armed, welcoming people, all right? The year of the Great Return was meant for people, like you say, who identify as African Americans to go back and reconnect with their motherland. And they did so, and yes, they did bring money to be able to buy land and settle and do that. And the money that they say they bring, if you had to use that amount of money in America, you would not be able to buy anything that will make you settle.
True.
At all. So the controversy of the Great Return is this. It's a reverse migration, if I could say that. You're going to Africa, a continent where people want to leave and go to where you come from, right? And they're being stopped in so many different kinds of ways, yet you are able to just smoothly get in and sit, right? And have a place for you. We welcome them. Absolutely welcome them. We welcome any African American who feels like, I want to go see Mother Africa. We welcome you. We'll give you land. We give you space. You can build your house. You can stay. You can learn the language and all of that. But I think that the way that we welcome them, can we also be welcomed when we come to the other side of the world? Because we're not. We're stopped even on the continent itself. North Africa is where you have all these people drowning in the seas because they're trying to cross over to go to Europe, or to go from Europe to America, or however their journey wants to take them to, right? If we could have a two-way street and say, okay, we know that there are hundreds and thousands of you who are African Americans, you want to go visit our country. How about Ghana or Cameroon says that we have land for 50,000 people who are going to come visit? But remember, you also have some of our people you took or you stole hundreds of years ago. How about those who want to come there? We have that trade, okay? That's in my head. It might never happen.
I think
it might never be such a thing.
I think for me, the irony of it is that people come to Africa, especially from the West. They come to Africa and they view it as a safari, a tourist destination, as a place that they have a right of traveling to because of a passport, and also because of their economic value also. But we forget how much Africa has given to them and how much they take from Africa. You know, now there is this aspect of making it seem like Africans are the ones who are benefiting economically from those global north countries only. And I think it brings me to question this this notion that you spoke about in terms of welcoming, because there are other African presidents now who are coming up and saying, wait, for how long are we going to welcome people who don't welcome us? But also, for how long are we going to extend courtesy that we don't receive? A lot of African countries, they don't even, people from the global north don't even need, don't have strict visa requirements to come to Africa. But when Africans go to those spaces, so that dilemma of migration for me still stands. And I think we have a long way to go until we are also viewed as people who are deserving to travel and just be and occupy other spaces. We are still the other, and I think it gets into aspects that you were talking about, and the othering just gets to be layered, where you are black, and now you are African, and now you are in the States. It's different from a European occupying that space. When a European occupies that space, it's just like, oh, they can fit in, and for me, that's very contentious. And I think we have a lot to do as Africans to change that narrative, and also to add value to our identity. I know we value our identities, but I think we need to also put a token to that to say, if you want to come to Africa, get a visa, pay up, stand in a queue, or don't come.
Or don't come. Yeah, I agree with you. How long are we going to be welcoming? And the thing is, when a European, or let's say a Westerner, goes to Africa, they're called expatriate. They're called tourists. Yeah. They're called visitors. They're just passing through. But when we come here, they don't even know why we're here. We're simply called immigrants.
Yeah.
I have friends who have come here to visit, and I don't think that they have ever been called visitors or tourists. No.
That's interesting.
Once they see you, they go, you're an immigrant. Yeah. So that's it. I live in a country today where, because of the political landscape, even I who came to America, like you said earlier in your introduction, to the DB lottery, which millions of people play, that one time in my life that I was entered into the system, I got selected. I have been an American from the day I walked into the country, because you come in with your green card.
Yeah.
Right? I have seen the struggles of those who don't have papers in America. It is not a good thing to live in. So I never faced that. But I'm at a situation where I put myself in the same bundle like every other person who is an immigrant living in America, because of the accent. So when I have to travel from one state to another, I have to have my passport to say I'm a citizen.
Wait.
All right? Because people are being taken away just because.
Wait, even with the green card, you have to carry your passport.
Oh, no, I don't have a green card anymore, because green card expires after 5 years. You can transition from this one. I have an American passport. But if I have your green card, if I didn't have the passport, I'll have to travel with my green card. All right? So just to let people know that, okay, I'm just traveling within here. I am not an illegal immigrant. So yes, my passport, because this accent is African and my skin is black. So I might be bundled and put in the group of people who are considered, illegal in the country. That's where we are. So I am in a space right now that I am part of the immigration community, whether you're legal or not. So I have to distinguish myself by carrying my passport all the time. I say, look, I don't care if I'm just taking a 3 hours flight or 2 hours flight to the next state. I carry that. So because we are all bundled together. It doesn't matter how you came.
So maybe let's unpack that a bit more in terms of how much of a reality is it, It's different from the plight that is suffered by Latinas in the States, right? Where based on their skin color, they are easily identified. Based by their jobs and their trades, they are easily bundled up. I think with blackness, there is some sort of, I hate to call it privilege even, because it's not really privilege, where you can fit in to the blackness. So my question really is, how much of a reality is it for you that wherever you travel or spaces that you occupy, you have, there is a propensity of you being stopped, being potentially bundled and asked for your documents?
First of all, we're all put together. Whether you are Latina, Latino, we call them black and brown people. So they're all put together. Yeah. The kind of fate that African immigrants face when they come to America and they're considered, illegal just because of the way they look, or because of the way they speak, that's the same fate that faces people coming from Latin American countries. Like Puerto Rico, for example, is an American-owned territory. Okay, I have Puerto Rican co-workers who have been told, no, you're not American. because they don't speak English like you would expect them to speak.
Yeah.
So they are considered like, okay, something is not right with you, you know. So no, we're all the same. We're in the same bundle. And the reality is we all face the same. Okay. If people look down on Africans, they think that, oh, because you're African, you never maybe went to the right schools, you're not well educated. People ask me whether I learn to speak English, right? It's the same thing that I will ask my Latina looking, friend or fellow American. Just
Yeah.
because they don't speak English like Americans speak English, they might be considered to be less educated or be here illegally. So the reality on the ground, Ivan, is that we are all facing the same fate, just because we look different and we sound different.
Yeah, the political landscape of America has had a great influence into how people are treated, specifically the binary nature of the political landscape. Specifically, if we look at the conservative aspect of the ruling party and how it treats migration, but also the political landscape of the African continent has also given way to type of the migration patterns that we're talking about. And I guess what I'm leading to and what I'm off ramping to, so to speak, is this notion of, okay, first of all, if you think of the African political landscape, what are your thoughts about it? Specifically thinking of the fact that today there is an election in Cameroon and Paul Biya is running for the 8th term, having done one rally, the confidence of having one rally in a political campaign, and how our presidents are 92, but at the time that he finishes, he might be 99, What do you think about the political landscape of the African continents in relation to this aspect of migration and how we welcome people, so to speak?
I was hoping to dodge this election in Cameroon today. I was hoping to dodge this, but I'm glad.
I was like thinking,
so
this is the day that we are recording, and I know there is the election in Cameroon today, and let's talk about it.
The elections are going on in Cameroon today. Yeah. Oh my. As much as I am informed about what is happening in my country of origin, I hate to really talk about it a lot because we all know where we come from, right? And I'm a trained broadcaster. I'm a trained journalist. I work in Cameroon. I saw how journalists, your freedom of speech is curtailed, okay? So you still live in that space no matter where you go. But let's talk about the elections in Cameroon today. Thankfully, I still belong to couple of groups, WhatsApp chat groups with my journalism students who graduated with me from the same batch. We communicate there a lot. We have a few who actually practice a profession right now. There's one beautiful KK. She lives in Nigeria, but she's in Cameroon to cover the election. So she is giving us updates in our chat group about that a lot. And also my former broadcast professionals, we also have another chat where we talk about what's happening. So I get informed, even if I don't have to tune to the radio station or the TV all the time. I know what's happening. Yes, we have our incumbent, President Paul Biya, who is, at the rightful age, I should say, of 92, is 93 now, is calling for another 7 years to run for the elections. And then we have Issa Chiroma, who has been a part of the government for so many years and is now, surprisingly leading his own party and trying to do his own thing. And he has met the people a lot to say that I want to lead you. I know I can lead you. And I don't know if you know much about him, but people have put him on the spot and asked him of the things that he has said before he had to secede from the government to lead his own party.
Yeah.
He said things like, oh, these are not true. When the people saying that there are things happening in the English part of the country, it's like, these are not true. So now they're asking him, are they true now? And his answer is, well, I'm saying what they were telling me to say. I was just me recounting. I'm like, So the Cameroon political landscape is at a place where if I were there to vote, because we don't have dual citizenship, I can't vote. Once I take an American citizenship, I cannot be a Cameroonian anymore, so I can't vote. But if I were to vote, Ivan, I'm telling you, till today, I wouldn't know who I would vote for. Because politics is a dirty game. All right. So why people are clamoring for Chiroma, Issa Chiroma, because he has publicly said that, I knew I was hurting you. I was told to say certain things against the English speakers and I changed. When people show you who they are, believe them. Okay. I believe him when he said that. And today, for me to go back and erase what he said and say, oh, he'll be good, I can't, because it is politics.
Yeah.
It is politics. It's like we all grew up in Africa, Ivan. When you want to catch a rooster or a hen, what do? You throw corn at them. They come, they're eating. They go, oh, this guy is feeding me. He's a good guy. Until they catch you. They slaughter you, take feathers off you, and make you their supper.
Yeah.
All right? So I don't trust any politician. I do not. I don't trust them. It's tough right now in Cameroon. I've been on my phone since morning, knowing what is happening. Some areas are very quiet. Some are my classmates have put their fingerprints on, I've voted. I'm very proud of them, but I'm still worried.
Yeah.
That international media houses are predicting an election of my country because they know it's always happened over and over again. I am still worried.
Yeah.
But let me land. If I really had to make a choice, I would ask for a change. Because it is good to, even though I say that it is politics, I don't trust that guy because he's been mean before. When somebody shows you who you are, believe them. I want somebody else. All right? Let's see somebody else's style of ruling. Let's see it. So I hope for change in Cameroon, change in the face of the rulership. I really hope for that. So fingers crossed. My colleagues say that they're waiting for the next 15 days for the results. Fingers crossed. Yeah. We are Africans, and with that, some things when they're done in Africa, that's how they'll always be done. So my fingers are crossed. I love Cameroon, but I need to see something change.
I think one of the things that you said that we can share as a common attribute throughout most of the African countries is when an election comes and we are grateful that there's peace, and we are clamoring to our foes to make sure that the peace is sustained through the election process. And I do hope that the peace at least transcends through the election period. I know right. We have elections that are coming in the coming year as well that are also resulting in some sort of violence that is happening, and I hope for the whole continent we start to have the peace aspect, But I want to start off from where you landed off, where you talked about change. I think one of the things that we do in the African continent and we don't do much of is we talk about change, but we use change as a word that just means different. I know a lot of parties have been started in just by saying the political party that's in power is not doing this, or they are doing this, and there is a blatant disregard of maybe humanity or of ethics, where I saw it's happening also in Cameroon, where people are literally getting money, the equivalent of like $5 where there's a rally, and I think leadership needs to be tested, and I think there needs to be very limited and very constitutionally mandated office period, that force people to deliver. And even if they deliver, they need to go out. You have a certain specific period of time, and in that time, you either do something or you don't. Whatever happens in that period, you make it your own, and then you leave. We have a problem of leadership, and the problem of leadership that we have almost throughout Africa, the African continent, and specifically also if we look at opposition parties as well, is that we see leadership as people are older, right? But also with that wisdom that comes, we also see this aspect of people not wanting to release power once they have tasted power. Even with opposition, we are seeing that as a problem. There's this Cameroonian proverb that I was listening to that says, is it the older coconut tree? The older the coconut tree, the better the fruit, And we live on that. And we don't exhaust from extracting from that coconut tree, so to speak. We have seen it in a lot of African countries, so much so that the young minds are not doing anything in politics. The doors are not even open to them, So for me, I think leadership has to be a term, and leadership has to be a fixed term. You either do something or you don't, but either way you're working out, which is something that we are not having. We are having this aspect of a legacy where we see a lot of African countries, they are even treating countries like a monarchy, I always think of this assertion that sometimes you can see how corrupt a country is through the proximity of the president's children to power, to resources, to roles, to ministries, and I think we are having a lot of that, and not staying on the political outfit, but I think that's what needs to change in the African continent, and I hope that that change
I
comes.
agree. Totally agree. I mean, in a few WhatsApp groups so far, it's been peaceful. I pray that the elections, be peaceful in Cameroon throughout the country today. It's been safe. It's been safe so far. Nobody has reported anything that has happened incorrectly, as far as people being harassed, or in Africa, sometimes they're like, "Oh, you stole this card or you stole that vote. Something went wrong here." It's amazing. I think the fact that I have lived in America for a long time, and I've seen elections after election, I see how they're counted right as it is happening. That when my colleague told me that, I said, okay, so when do we release the result? Is it 15 days? I go, oh my God. 15 days is enough time for us to do anything we want to do, Ivan, in the country where we come from, because they will manually pick up the boxes, go count them, and who is doing that? I don't know. So I panic. I'm like, oh my God, okay. All right, calm down.
But also, like,
hopefully something.
It's something that we have been seeing in a lot of Mozambique. It happened. Like, I think in Kenya it happened. In Zimbabwe it happened. This aspect of we take time to count. A simple thing as counting the election results takes time, and we are not moving. And how can we even say 15 days is what it like? How is that even acceptable?
15 days. Yeah.
And I'm getting worried.
Because we have all these, polling stations. I think if a polling station had, let's say, 1 million people, you can count that in a day because you have a staff that is working, right? And if every polling station has 1 million people, you can count all those in a day and reconcile the numbers. Why do you need 15 days? I don't know. That's a long time to do whatever. Cameroon, my lovely country. I pray for the best. But again, so far, so good. It's been peaceful and fingers crossed. Usually you hear things happen when they're saying that, that was miscounted. No, they had to bring other ballots and that wasn't the right one. And I've been seeing people posting that the pens that they're going to use to sign whatever, the pens are erasable ink. So I'm like, why? So I go vote for A. By the time my signature gets confirmed, it's straight that I voted for B or stuff. I don't know. And you would think this is 2025 where we have so much improvement in AI, right? That we could have some sense of how to count something better. How do you count money in the bank? There's some machines that you use, and that's paper. You can also, I don't know, Ivan. We laugh because we're Africans. No matter how bad that continent is, no matter how bad that country is, that's my first love. I'm not going to change it, but can we talk about how we can change it? Can we try to see how we can fix it? Can we learn from some other African countries how we can get closer counting days? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that there's a saying that we have in our culture that is we laugh at poverty, or we laugh at things that are not funny, as if they are bliss, And I think in Africa we do that a lot because it's not funny, but it brings out where we are as a continent and as a people, And it's sometimes with the way African leaders and African people, my people as well, the way that we have taken democracy as a farce, elections as a farce, you cannot help but laugh, because if you really think about it, either you get stressed about it, or it's something that can depress you even, and I think that's where. That's where we need to have serious conversation, like what you're saying, in terms of, can we talk about changing? Can we talk about integrating technology into our elections? Can we talk about this aspect of saying the next day the elections the counting has to be done? Like what you're saying, it's counting, and we have been counting since.
It's counting,
and we take it as something that takes time. Why
do you need 2 weeks to count some things? 2 weeks?
Yeah,
I don't get it. And again, let's talk about like the ages of the contestant you mentioned earlier. Yes, Probia is in his early 90s. If he gets this other term, he will be getting to 100 by the time he leaves the country. Now, by the time he leaves the seat of the presidency. The thing is, when you look at a country like America as well, you look at the current president or the one who just left, they are in that age group as well. If you are 79 or you are 92, you're all the same age group, okay?
Yeah.
Unless you are toddlers. Kids who are 1 month old to 2 years old, that's a huge gap because of their intellectual maturity. But when you are adults, whether you are 75, between 75 to like 90, you're all considered the same age group, okay? So I would say that Joe Biden, who left, and Trump, who's current president, as well as my Cameroonian president and the one who's contesting against him and others, are in that same age bracket. But there's a difference. The ones who are in America are allowed to be criticized. You can talk about their age. You can talk about they're doing wrong. You can tell them to make a change.
Not currently, though.
But the ones who are, not directly.
I'm saying not currently, though, not with the current president.
Oh, yeah. People still do it. The current president has brought something they call cancel culture. He's made it alive where you're canceled, you're fired because of things. So he's really stifled that a lot. Yeah. I always say that Trump would have been a good African president, but
he wishes he was a dictator and an African president. He wishes he had the power that Putin has. Sorry,
he loves
but
them.
You can proceed. Sorry.
Yeah. So my point is, no matter how much we say that African presidents are old, Western presidents are younger. Yeah, Obama was one of the youngest that we saw, and he did a good job before he left. Now he's relaxing at an older age. But the ones who are here now and the ones who are in Africa, the same age group. But the difference is the ones who are here were allowed to point to their fault. Hey, you look sick. Hey, go to the doctor. Hey, why are your ankles swollen? What's wrong with you? But where we come from, how dare you? Even say that this guy should go rest because he's old, which is a blessing to be old. How dare you? That's the difference I see. So when people start blasting African people being too old, I think they're all old. The difference is we can't talk about it publicly where we come from. I worked at a station one time in Cameroon where my editor-in-chief was, bundled up because he said something which was true, but he wasn't supposed to say it. So you can't really speak because your words are curtailed. You're stifled from speaking so much in the African continent. Meanwhile, here you can say that, but again, today you're being shut up. So where are we? Are we all reverting to that African style of ruling then? Is Africa the model? I don't know.
I get where you're coming from.
We are the model.
I get where you're coming from. And I kind of despise the truth in that, but also I don't want to pervade the Western form of democracy as the golden standard for democracy, because we have seen how it has shifted, right? Let's think of how the shift is happening right now, and how the shift to Trump happened, and how it has shown the true colors, so to speak, of Proud Boys, of people who are white supremacists,
the MAGA
and all of that, and how the discourse of hate has been brought to the fore. It was simmering at the bottom, but now it has come to the fore. But I think there is something to be said about, like, you remember when I said you can tell how corrupt a country is by the proximity of the president's children to power, positions of power. Yep. If you look at Jared Kushner, if you look at Trump's daughters, if you look at their roles in politics, the seats that they have
in the government,
that they have occupied, and how what's happening in Gaza right now, and how the president's son-in-law is someone who is negotiating those terms, so to speak. You know, but I don't want to use that as a gold standard, because even if we use the template of the Middle East and Benjamin Netanyahu and his form of democracy as a Western form of democracy, and how he has plundered Gaza and how even Palestinians were excluded from this negotiation table, so to speak, and they just received a template of a deal that came from the Western side, But I think there is something to what you're saying in terms of it's like following an African template. And I think in addition to the age and people getting old in power, there is something to be said, man, about how people cannot be challenged, both on the political landscape, but also how speech is stifled and how people cannot express themselves. I heard you say part of your friends who are covering the current election are broadcasting from Nigeria, The mere fact that you're already doing that.
Oh, no, she's in Cameroon.
Oh, she's in Cameroon.
She works for a Nigerian media, but she's in Cameroon now.
Okay.
Yeah, we went to school. She's Cameroonian.
Okay. No, that's cool. But also, like, there are journalists who are not allowed in other countries, specifically African journalists in African countries, and we still have that, There is a legacy of African presidents pervading as Democrats, or democratics, but not
Yeah.
actually waving the
Yeah.
flag of democratic, or moving Africa, or moving the needle of Africanism into a space where democracy is respected or is something that is in play. And I'm sure you have seen a lot of that in the journalism space and broadcasting space that you've occupied.
I have seen that a lot. I have seen that a lot. So when I graduated from the School of Journalism in Cameroon, it was at a time when we only had one station, TV, radio. That was the national station, the Cameroon-owned media, radio and TV. And a year after I graduated, then the landscape was released. You can now have private radio and TV stations. So I was blessed to work for a private radio and TV station. And at that time, they were like, oh, it's democracy because you're able, to do your own thing. You can now own a radio station. You can own a TV station. But like I said, my editor-in-chief was bundled up because he said something that was not right in the ears of the powers that be. Now, when you release this media ownership to the public, you say, oh, I have moved the needle. Now I am a democratic country because you can do this. But there's so many limits to what you can do.
Yeah, but I want to ask.
I read the papers from Cameroon every single day that I see posted on my WhatsApp, on my chat groups, and you see people that you are like, wait, how did this person turn around and say, I support this particular person who's running? Because they have been put in a position where they too are benefiting from the powers that be. So you have to just,
But Mabelle, I'm thinking on the line of thinking that you're going through right now, and I'm just thinking of a conversation that we had recently on the podcast. So is democracy the solution to Africa? Do you think that democracy should be something that we are doing and do it perfectly, whatever that means? Or is there a better way for us to do things as Africans?
So we start by defining democracy, right? It says it's the power of the people, for the people, by the people.
Yeah. Is that even achievable?
We had that, Ivan.
When?
Okay, let's say it's not achievable in the way, in the Western world that gave us that democracy, right? If you look at the African context of democracy, we had that. Look at your forefathers who were leading your villages. The person who was older and wiser. And once he was done, what did he do? He passed on to somebody else in a ceremonious manner. He wasn't coerced. He knew my time was coming. I was going to go. He's called an Iroko tree. He's called the baobab. He's going to fall. So he passed it over. We had democracy in Africa. We did.
But also
in our own way.
There are a lot of things that you're talking about that either apply and don't apply. Look at it this way. Look at our leaders and wisdom, right? It's a very controversial thing to say.
I know where you're heading to. You're going to tell me that is because, I know where you're heading to, because I had this chat with another classmate of mine when I said that, I think that we had a way of doing our things. We ensure that if you had gray hair, then you're wise. Oh, let's go talk to
but I'm saying they were actually wise. But I'm saying the leaders that we have currently, and wisdom. Like, I'm just thinking of a situation where, as a country, right, we get to campaign politically, right? And someone tells us that they're giving us chicken. It's like the analogy that you were talking about. Right. They're giving us chicken,
Right.
So now we are being fed from the point of poverty and not being fed from the need or the requirement of wisdom that you're talking about, which used to be the source of leadership for our forefathers. It's like our leaders are creating a space for poverty and using that space to exploit people and giving them a piece of chicken to eat while they are campaigning. That doesn't even sustain them for a day. And so we are feeding from that rather than feeding from the wisdom that we should be feeding from, which which the forefathers were feeding us from. But also that's a controversial stance because I don't think that was also democracy. Yeah, it's debatable because they didn't leave it to their sons.
It's debatable.
It's debatable, but I get how it made sense because there was a way of doing things. It was like there was a constitution which was respected. But currently it's like the constitution doesn't make sense, It was laws that were written down and to say this is how you pass down power, and this is how you pass down the dynasty and the chieftaincy. Some people are still practicing that, and you would follow that constitution and you'd follow that tradition, that ceremony. But now it's like elections take 15 days to count the results, but the constitution might say the next day the elections must be, so we don't have respect for that law, for that rule, which we previously had.
Yeah, we don't have it. And I like how you say it's debatable. And yes, we feed from the point of poverty because we cling onto this power so that when we know that the populace is leaning on me because I can feed them bread and that bread is given to them when I want to. You understand? This is no secret. Right now in Cameroon, during the campaign period, we have pictures and videos where people are getting a bread and sardine and $1, and I'm going to vote for you, and they have a certain political party, regalia on.
Yeah.
It's not a secret. That's when they come to you to feed you. And do you think that you're going to sustain your life with that piece of bread and a tin of sardine for how long and how much ever they gave you? So it comes from a place of greed as well. We know that our people are greedy.
Yeah.
We know that. Even my mother, who's not a politician, the other day was telling me, she's like, can you imagine what this person said? I go, who? She goes, oh, this person who grew up in a town where I was born said this. And it's a lie. I'm like, okay, my mother is 72, and she too had grown up in that place and people just keep winning. But the thing that is really killing us, African leaders today, that I feel sorry for them is that they cannot hide it anymore because of what? Social media, Ivan.
Yeah.
It has exposed a lot of what people are doing. Back when there was no social media, I mean, like in Cameroon, we've changed the constitution a few times just so somebody can run for, so many terms, and from whatever time to 7 more years.
Yeah.
We've changed that. Back then, people would grumble behind the scenes. You don't know. But today, by the time it is being done, you're handing over bread and sardine. We are seeing it. So we know how you get yourself re-elected because you're bribing people, and we are seeing it. That is one thing that is killing us. But again, I will stick to my Africanness and say that the democracy that we had as Africans back in the day was beautiful because we did not feed from a point of poverty. Okay, we did not do that. Now you had the family that will rule. If this person ruled and is about to go, they acknowledge their weakness. When they were about to leave, they say, "Okay, I'm about to leave because I'm going to visit my ancestors. I'm going. I'm departing. My time is coming." They hand over, and then they always ensured that their people had food.
True.
All right. The people had to have food. I grew up in one of the villages in Cameroon, in the northwest area. My father was worked for the government, the prison. So we moved a lot in the country, okay? We lived one of the places where I saw the culture of the African person respected, right? Farmers, it was a rural area. Farmers come together, you farm, but during the harvesting season, everyone comes out and the first harvest goes to the chief's palace. And after that, he says, go and feed yourself.
Yeah.
Make sure you have food for your family. That is the culture of democracy Africans had. He didn't give you money. You served him because he is your ruler. He wasn't going to go to the farm and farm. You make sure you had food. In turn, he ensured that you were fed. He did not say, come and give me until I'm able to give you a little bit when I need to give a little bit. How about we look at that aspect of African democracy? There's a lot that Africans are deviating from, even African spirituality. And we can touch on that a little bit today as well.
Yeah.
What is happening that we are deviating? And then we say that the Western democracy is a democracy. No, there was an African form of democracy.
You know what kills me about that? What kills me about that is that you go to the States, they even do it in Africa, where people who killed our own ancestors, they have statues in Africa. They are paid homage to. They are respected. They are revered.
Yeah.
Even if you go to the States, right? But we were told to demonize our own ancestors. We were told to demonize our own people, and we were told to demonize each other. But I also want to get back to what you spoke about, and I want to say something that will shock a lot of Africans. A lot of Africans will be shocked by the mere fact that our governments are made to serve us in a democracy. We are not supposed to bow down to our ministers, our governors, and all of those people. They are made to bow down to us and serve us. But now that model has been flipped. And in that model being flipped, we see people who are closer to them, people who worship them, people who revere them are the ones who get the crumbs. They are the ones who get the most money. They are the ones who get the most opportunities. They are the ones who get the most land. They are the ones who get, So it's like almost like worshiping people who are in power. And that deviates from this aspect of democracy completely and totally. And until we get that right, I don't think we are even going to get that right, because we have lost track so much so that we don't even know if we are going the Western way or if we are still attaching ourselves to our African model, which also brings back to my question, which is democracy really for Africans? Because we are consuming something that that our stomachs are not ready to accept,
Not.
And
I think the Africans think that democracy means that, oh, Ivan, you can hold your podcast, I'm not stopping you. We think it means that, oh, Ivan, you can go to work today without being stopped on the road for no reason.
Yeah.
I think the thing, it means that as long as this person is alive and ruling you and nobody is suffering, we're fine. They don't see it as the fact that power can change hands when it is said to be changed when it is said that it must change hands.
Yeah.
They don't see it from the angle that you can free speech. I mean, I'm talking from the point of somebody who studied broadcasting, right? Like I said earlier, power of the people, for the people, by the people.
Yeah, we don't even see.
Is that what the West
we
is
don't
doing?
even see democracy as the masses having the voice. We see democracy as the people
No.
who we elected having the voice. So much so that it should scare us when this
Yes.
person talks. And
Yes, as the fact that person can amass, millions of dollars, but you are still able to go to your farm and toil.
Yeah.
That's democracy, because they didn't stop from toiling.
Yeah.
That is how I think Africans democracy. And to back to your question, which we have talked about, but kind of talk about without really beating the actual head of the nail on the head. Let me say this: it's not for Africa.
It's not simply. It's not for Africa. I think there are other models that we.
Yeah, it is not.
I think democracy
Yeah.
still is the persistence of colonialism, and the more that we are
It
pursuing
is.
it, that's
It's a
why we
big
can't
point.
pursue it, because it's a Western model, and we
It is the
can't
persistence
really.
of colonialism.
Because we can't really, we are eating something our stomachs are not ready for, and we don't know how to digest it, and for us to
I love
continue with that, it's going to be toxic for us and generations to come. I think, which is where I want to sort of end at, like in wrapping everything that we've spoken about and thinking about. I know we haven't spoken about spirituality, and I think we should serve another session on its own just to talk about spirituality.
No problem.
But
We should.
But I wanted to talk about blackness and how blackness and Africanness is treated and is perceived. I want to I think end off in terms of everything that we have spoken about, and all the points that we have spoken about, and bringing that together. With everything that happens with colorism and Africanness and blackness, in your own experience, what is the current state of blackness and what is the current state of Africanism? You can pick around the world or in your own context.
It is complicated. It is so complicated. I remember I was telling my son, I said, there's going to be a time when being black is not just only going to be defined by the way you look, because they see you being black. Being African is not going to be defined by just the way you look or the way you speak or your last name. You're going to have to prove it beyond the physicalness of it. You're going to have to prove it. So it is complicated, because some people are saying that don't call me black, don't call me African Americans. You've heard of foundational Black Americans, that one is also popping up right now. Unfortunately, it's hard to define blackness or Africanness. Tyler came to America, Tyler from South Africa. She said she's colored. People were mad at her. They want her to be called black, but she's not. Yes, she is where you are, but where she come from, she's colored. Why are we so it is complicated, Ivan, unfortunately. It is complicated. Again, there's going to be a time when I'll have to prove that I am African. Not just because my last name is African, but because, can you say something in African or in any African language? Do you have an African passport, which is going to be my tongue?
Yeah.
there's going to be that time. So it is complicated, not just by the looks, which we have today. Just like American citizenship is complicated. I tell you, I travel with my passport wherever I go because it is complicated.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a definition anymore. It is complicated.
Yeah, and I think you're correct. There is something to be said about also how we have treated Africanism, you know, because on our own as Africans, we have lost the plot, and let other people dilute Africanism. You know, I always talk about this assertion of saying, people say when you go to Rome, you do what the Romans do. But when people come to Africa, we do what they do.
They don't do what Africans do.
You know, they do what they do
Exactly.
in Africa, and we try to beat them at what they do. You know, we are currently communicating in English when they come here. We try to make sure that they have an experience that has we hire their Teslas, we hire their Lamborghinis to make sure that they are comfortable. You know, we never give them an African experience, and it says something about
Do
how
you
we
know how many
treat ourselves.
Africans go as far as compromising their names in America, for example?
Yeah.
Because they want to do as you do in Rome. Do you know how many?
A lot.
Many of us do that.
And that's another
Okay,
thing.
have you seen any American go to Africa and say that my name is now Manga because I'm now in Africa? No. But we come here, I see Africans. I was talking to somebody whose name is Jongonu from somewhere in French-speaking Africa. And I said it to him. He goes, no, they call me DJ. I go, why? Because it is spelled DJ something. So he goes by, that's his last name, not even the first name. It's the last name. So you just, for lack of a better word, kill your Africanness in your beautiful name and just call it DJ.
Yeah.
Because the white man cannot pronounce it for you.
Because the brunt of responsibility of learning and of mastering things and of knowledge lays on the Africans. So the other people in the other cultures, they don't bear the brunt of responsibility to learn, to even pronounce.
Well, let's try to flip it then. Then that means Africans are smart, Ivan. Africans are smart.
No, we are.
They can easily
we
pick it
definitely
up.
are. But in our smartness, it's like we also try, because we also in other cases define smartness as being able to acculturate, you know. But also we don't take account of the fact that we know many languages, we know many cultures, we have the propensity to also be learning their culture. We are learning people's cultures, you know, but we don't allow ourselves enough grace to say, no, you also have to learn my culture, because we don't think enough of our culture as well. We don't think enough of our skin, you know. So I think we need to get right with ourselves and start that journey of walking the Africanness and walking blackness, because we don't do that enough.
We do not. I'm here today. I'm called Mabelle because my country was ruled by the French. So I didn't tell you what my middle name is or my last name is, because they make us feel like that one should be hidden,
right?
You know. And today my kids don't have Western names. They don't. And you know what? When I tell people, like when my daughter was born, I tell my African people her name. They go, "Oh, what's her English name?" And I go, "Excuse me, is she an English child?"
Right.
You should be proud to say, oh, that's the name is this, because it's an African name.
Yeah.
But when I tell the European or the Americans her name, they go, oh, what does it mean? They're curious.
Of course.
So let's bring ours to the forefront. Like you say, we have the propensity of neglecting ours. Like mine is not good. Oh, this skin is not good. I have to make it lighter. You know what? I think there will be a whole another podcast on Africans for that. But I'm one person who, the Africanness in me, I refuse to even alter my accent.
Yeah,
I need to keep it clean.
And on that note, I know we have a lot more to discuss. I think there will be more episodes in terms of discussing a lot more things that we opened up in terms of the Pandora's box. And I'm gonna say it with pride. My name is Munashe Katsere, and Ivan is a colonial name if you think about it. And thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mabelle, for joining us. This has been an amazing episode, and thank you for being with us today.